people who are actually increasing their drinking the most in the midlife are cisgender heterosexual women, so much that the disparity is closing. So their rates are increasing to match the rates of LGBT women. We also know that the alcohol trends are concentrated among women with high education, high income, and high prestige careers. So we have some suspicions that it might be related to sort of shifts in women's status socially, as well as people having more access to resources, like it's people who are higher income, and people who are drinking for pleasure. So it's something that people do socially, people do for fun with their friends. There are not any health benefits to drinking, but there are social benefits to drinking. So people who are working and who attend a work happy hour, for example, will get benefits from doing that do translate into like sort of material value at the workforce, even if obviously it's not good for their health.
When estrogen is high, we have found that to be particularly risky for probability of drinking. So we've seen higher drinking and then also higher binge drinking during phases of the menstrual cycle when estrogen is high. So that's specifically the first half of the cycle and mid-cycle right before ovulation is when estrogen peaks. And then also we think that progesterone is protective against that effect. So during the second half of the cycle, estrogen is lower and progesterone is higher. So we typically see less drinking in the second half of the cycle. We are seeing an end of cycle effect though, and that is where progesterone is decreasing, and we have seen greater drinking right at the end of the cycle as well. So we think that may be associated with progesterone decreasing. Males have predominantly drank more. And so most of the alcohol research that has been conducted has been in predominantly or entirely male samples. However, we've seen a large increase in drinking in women, specifically over the past decade. Women are drinking a lot more than they used to. And it's estimated that binge drinking in women is actually increasing to levels comparable to those seen in men.
It's this real proliferation of not only advertisements targeting women, but products targeting women. I think like a famous example would be the skinny margarita. Advertisers know that women have money to spend on alcohol, and they have tailored their advertisements to match that market. Over the past 15 years, hard alcohol, beer, et cetera, have been pretty stable, and wine has skyrocketed. And wine in particular has been really marketed towards women. So I think social forces related to alcohol advertising are probably increasing these trends, but I also think that alcohol advertising is targeting women because it's more acceptable for women to drink. Like, I think that these things are happening at the same time. And I wouldn't say that the cause of women's drinking is alcohol advertising. I would say that it's probably bidirectional and it's creating kind of a runaway cycle. But they, 15, 20 years ago, poured a lot of money into research showing that moderate alcohol consumption was heart healthy, which a lot of people still believe. And that was research that was found to be supported by alcohol industry groups. And it was this big scandal. But the message is out there that like wine is healthy, wine is good for you, and wine is a treat, and wine is classy, and all of these things that, are targeting this group of people.
For clinicians and providers that are, assessing for things like alcohol use disorder and other psychopathology, I think being aware of time in the menstrual cycle or even reproductive period in reproductive stage that individuals are in, such as menopause, just taking into account how these things can influence what individuals are reporting in terms of how much they're drinking, how much they're craving, what symptoms they're experiencing. If clinicians have awareness of how these things can impact psychopathology and things like drinking, I think we could better assess women and kind of better diagnose and better treat women as well. And then also, hopefully, if we are continue to find significant relations between hormones and drinking and other behaviors, that they could be implicated in treatment. So, being implicated into therapy, making women aware of specific risks during certain phases of their cycle or certain reproductive periods in their life and helping them cope with, these risks. And then also, possibly down the road, we think that maybe hormone stabilizing medications could be helpful for maybe treating alcohol use disorder in women who are particularly sensitive to these hormone fluctuations. So, yeah, we think there's a lot of clinical significance, but results need to be significant and replicated, and then hopefully, yeah, disseminated. And I think the assessment piece is really important just for clinicians to be aware of these risks to help, inform assessment and treatment.
Obviously, we should continue discouraging women from drinking, but I think that some of that should be coming from places where drinking has become normalized. So I'm very in favor of occupational interventions, like workplace interventions. I'm very in favor of sober happy hours. I'm very in favor of basically finding alternatives in the workforce to alcohol, to sort of changing workforce culture, because I think that that will go a long way. People are a captive audience, and that it's a place where we could really make a difference without kind of wandering into the public health messaging that's specifically targeting women in a punitive way, but actually sort of thinking about how can we go in and change like workforce culture? How can we partner with businesses to discourage this?